Do you really want an AI to be trained on all of that? Do you want it to be trained on your genomic data? Alrighty, folks, it's good to be back. Some time off around Thanksgiving, and so I am pleased to be back, with you all, and doing the videos again. And this one crossed my radar just recently. I've talked about AI a little bit on this channel, and because essentially it's a complicated model and its output results are very much dependent on the model, but also every single thing it's trained with. And so that's where this becomes extremely important, and also why you should guard your own data as much as you possibly can um, for yourself. This showed up in Nature quite recently. The AI revolution is running out of data. What can researchers do? AI developers are rapidly picking the internet clean to train large language models, such as those behind ChatGPT. Here's how they're trying to get around the problem. AI makes use of a massive amount of data, and more all the time. And one thing to note before I continue is, of course, you've seen Kieran White on this channel, friend of the channel himself, here talking about AI in his own pages and what have you, that there's also some serious ethical issues with regards to copyright and infringement upon the artistic side of things and what have you. And so just bear that in mind. This is one of the reasons for keeping track of your own data and images and things posted online and what have you, because it could end up being a problem. Excuse me. Let us begin. The internet is a vast ocean of human knowledge, but it isn't infinite, and artificial intelligence researchers have nearly sucked it dry. The past decade of explosive improvement in AI has been driven in large part by making neural networks bigger and training them on ever more data. This scaling has proved surprisingly effective in making large language models, such as those that power the chatbot ChatGPT, both more capable of replicating conversational language and of developing emergent properties such as reasoning. It's not human, it's trained on whatever data it's given. But some specialists say that we are approaching the limits of scaling. That's in part because of the ballooning energy requirements for computing, but it's also because LLM developers are running out of the conventional datasets used to train their models. A prominent study made headlines this year by putting a number on the problem. Researchers at Epic AI, a virtual research institute, projected that by around 2028, the typical size of a dataset used to train an AI model will reach the same size as the total estimated stock of public online text. In other words, AI is likely to run out of training data in about 4 years' time. At the same time, data owners such as newspaper publishers are starting to crack down on how their content can be used, tightening access even more. That's causing a crisis in the size of the data commons, says Shane Longpre, an AI researcher at the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in Cambridge, who leads the Data Provenance Initiative, a grassroots organization that conducts audits of AI datasets. Not shot in the dark, but I'm curious if those guys could do us all a favor and let us know if our data is being stolen and used. Well, not stolen. Stolen's not necessarily the right word. You put it out there publicly, but if our data is being used, that kind of thing, that might be nice for us to know. Set up a way for us to check that. Ooh. With particular public data sets, with particular AI data sets. That would be nice. Somebody do that. The imminent bottleneck of in training data could be starting to pinch. Quote, I strongly suspect that's already happening, says Longpre. So this is actually a great graphic about it, and I'm not going to go all the way through this. This just happened to be an interesting news bit. But this 2020 here is kind of thing with that. And get into GPT-3, Flan, Palm, Falcon, EBRX, Llama 3, which is Meta's Facebook, if you want to know. Median projection for when the amount of available text equals the training data size. In other words, not producing data fast enough to train an AI, funny enough. And that's fine with me if we're not, because frankly, I don't think this is a good thing to necessarily give to an AI, to give all the data to an AI. Has it worked? But anyway, that's the moral question that's not being addressed in this article. Let's see. For example, prominent AI companies such as OpenAI and Anthropic, both in San Francisco, publicly acknowledge the issue while suggesting that they have plans to work around it, including generating new data and finding unconventional data sources. A spokesperson for OpenAI told Nature, quote, "We use numerous sources, including publicly available data and partnerships for non-public data, synthetic data generation, and data from AI trainers." What the heck is an AI trainer? In here, that's new. That's interesting. Even so, the data crunch might force an upheaval in the types of generative AI model that people build, possibly shifting the landscape away from big all-purpose LLMs to smaller, more specialized models. Let's see. Finding data. There we go. The data crunch poses a potentially big problem for the conventional strategy of AI scaling. Although it's possible to scale up a model's computing power or number of parameters without scaling up the training data, that tends to make for a slow and expensive AI, something that isn't usually preferred. If the goal is to find more data, one option might be to harvest non-public data, such as WhatsApp messages or transcripts of YouTube videos. Forgive me if I don't think it's a good idea to give non-public data to an AI. I'm harping on this because this is where you get into science and ethics questions with this. Sure, from the science and tech side, you could probably train the AI on that. Question is not that. The question I have is whether or not that's a good idea to do that. Whether it's a good idea to give an AI model all of that data. Although the legality of scraping third-party content in this matter is untested, this is where we get back to the copyright things. Companies do have access to their own data, and several social media firms say they use their own material to train their AI models. For example, Meta in Menlo Park, California, says that audio and images collected by its virtual reality headset MetaQuest are used to train its AI. Yet policies vary. The terms of service for the video conferencing platform Zoom say the firm will not use customer content to train AI systems, whereas Otter AI, a transcription service, says it does use de-identified audio and encrypted audio and transcripts for training. Now, what that is, de-identified meaning they do their level best to remove any identification image, any identifying things from it before they do the training. For now, however, such proprietary content probably holds another quadrillion text tokens in totals, estimated Villalobos. Considering that a lot of this is low quality or duplicated content, he says this is enough to delay the data bottleneck by a year and a half, even assuming that a single AI gets access to all of it without causing copyright infringement or privacy concerns. We are already at that point, okay, with copyright infringement issues, because I believe it's New York Times and Washington Post that are suing over infringement by OpenAI. Midjourney is being sued for infringement with regards to artistic copyrights, photo and video copyrights. So that is happening already. So you're you're a little late to the party on that one with this Nature article. Even a 10 times increase in the stock of data only buys you about 3 years of scaling. Another option might be to focus on specialized data sets, such as astronomical or genomic data, which are growing rapidly. Fei-Fei Li, a prominent AI researcher at Stanford University in California, has publicly backed this strategy. I don't know that I want genomic data fed to an AI. No offense. She said at Bloomberg Technology Summit in May that worries about data running out take too narrow a view of what constitutes data, given the untapped information available across fields such as healthcare, the environment, and education. This is where I get very concerned from the moral and ethics standpoint, and I don't think I'm alone in that. That do you really think it's a good idea to give all that data to an AI to randomly train on things? I don't necessarily think so. I find it very creepy and violations of lots of privacy. From the healthcare sides, I would immediately worry about violations of HIPAA law. And HIPAA's you end up in crap tons of trouble if you violate HIPAA. That kind of thing. At least as a doctor, you do, for sure. But I worry about environment law and education law. And to take some of the other questions here, it's not being talked about in this, but amongst the tribal nations in the U.S., the Native American tribal nations, i.e., such like the Chickasaw, the Choctaw, the Comanche, all the rest, are issues of data sovereignty. What control they have over their data when with regards to research. And there's a lot of that data there too. But data sovereignty is an issue for just about everybody. Do you have right and control over data that is tied to you? Obviously, you should. So, well, not obviously, you should. Obviously, to me, anyway, you should. So that's just a question of whether or not you would want that. And if it's an issue of privacy and what have you with all this, would you really want that shared with an AI model? She's not wrong that there's many things that you could consider data. That's not the question. Like an AI, you can train on it. Scientifically, it would make sense. But that's not the issue. The question is whether or not you should, to begin with, share so much data and have it be used for training AI models. I do not think so. But it's unclear how available or useful such data sets would be for training LLMs. Quote, there seems to be some degree of transfer learning between the many types of data, says Villalobos. That said, I'm not very hopeful about that approach. Well, good. I'm glad for that. The possibilities of are broader if generative AI is trained on other data types, not just text. Some models are already capable of training to some extent on unlabeled videos or images. Expanding and improving such capabilities could open a floodgate to richer data. Jan LeCun, chief AI scientist at Meta and a computer scientist at New York University, who's considered one of the founders of modern AI, highlighted these possibilities in a presentation in February at an AI meeting in Vancouver, Canada. The 10 to the 13th tokens used to train a modern LLM sounds like a lot. It would take a person 170,000 years to read that much, LeCun calculates. But he says a 4-year-old child has absorbed a data volume 50 times greater than this just by looking at objects during his or her waking hours. LeCun presented the data at an annual meeting for the Association for the Advancement of Artificial Intelligence. Now, this is an interesting thing by itself because we have to remember AI, one of the purposes of AI is to get it to think, quote unquote, like a human brain. And so, you look at things, you categorize things, you assign tags to things yourself in your own brain as you're walking around, right? That's what they're talking about with respect to AI here. Again, do you really want an AI that can do that? Do we really think it's a good idea? Moral ethics questions versus science questions of whether or not it's feasible and what kind of result it could be and all those kinds of things. Two very different sets of questions. If data can't be found, more could be made. Some AI companies pay people to generate content for AI training. Others use synthetic data generated by AI for AI. Error propagation. 2 words on that. Error propagation. If your AI has an error and you're training an AI off it, you're just propagating error and making it bigger. This is a potentially massive source. Earlier this year, OpenAI said it generates 100 billion words per day. That's more than 36 trillion words a year, which is about the same size as current AI training datasets, and this output is growing rapidly. The problem with synthetic data is that recursive loops might entrench falsehoods, magnify misconceptions, and generally degrade the quality of learning. So, this is just something I wanted to mention. Obviously, this is linked in the description for you. And I would go have a look at it because it's a fascinating piece. But running out of data is one thing. But in the question of where to go to get more, there's a crap ton of ethics questions that get added in on top of it, everything that's already there, because there's already a crap ton of ethics questions. Like journals like Nature are trying to figure out what to do with the AI problem of what should the rules be with regards to the writing of articles. Is it okay to have a ChatGPT written article be submitted to a journal? No, is where I fall on that one. But that's a topic for another day. Question being wrestled with. Questions also for people to wrestle with this becomes more prominent. There are many different types of data out there. Your own photos, your videos, all of those kinds of things. Do you really want an AI to be trained on all of that? Do you want it to be trained on your genomic data, your medical data? All of those kinds of things. When you get into healthcare, that's what we're talking about, is potentially medical records. Is where you're going with that. That's the far extreme, just to bear that in mind. I'm not saying that that's what's going to happen, but that is the extent to what they're talking about. They just say healthcare. Could be any number of different things in there, like public instances with healthcare, like, what generic things, how many people, how many people got into car accidents, how many people how many people caught colds, how many people got a flu shot, all of those kinds of things that are just more general generic numbers rather than specific person data. But there is questions there when you get to the healthcare stuff of, particularly in the United States, violations of HIPAA would be forefront. How do you deal with that? So things to think about. But what do you think? What do you think on these particular topics? AI is running out of data. Should they be seeking more? What data would be good to share? What data would not be good to share? What kind of moral, ethical things are there in your mind? Be curious to hear your thoughts. Let me know what you think. Hit the like button on the way out the door. Comment on the video. Share the video. Subscribe to the channel. All that lovely good jazz. As you can tell, it's Christmas time. And I will talk to you again soon. Until next time, stay curious, everybody.